Have you ever looked in the mirror and seen a version of yourself that you've outgrown, but still keep alive out of habit? That voice in your head that tells you to wait, to play it safe, to not try. That's not you. That's the ghost of who you were. And if you don't kill it, it will kill the future that's trying to be born. Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." Autumn. That's not a metaphor. It's an execution order for the weaker self. This isn't self-help. This is warfare. Because becoming your best self isn't about growth. It's about destruction. It's about burning the old map of who you were so you can redraw it in fire and discipline. That's what this video is about. Not motivation, metamorphosis. Not becoming something better, not becoming something new. We will walk you through the 10 brutal, beautiful Stoic principles that sharpen you like a blade, starting now. But before we begin, if you're ready to stop explaining your potential and start living it, hit that like button and subscribe. This is Stoicism as a weapon, and you're going to need it. Let's begin.
Number 1.
The Art of Self-Renewal. There comes a point in every person's life when survival depends not on pushing forward, but on letting go. The Stoics didn't talk about transformation like it was optional. They treated it as a rite of passage. Seneca once wrote, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." And that's not just poetic, it's surgical. To become new, you must cut away the parts of you that are still clinging to outdated identities, excuses, and emotional crutches. The man you are today may have been necessary to get you here, but he may not be capable of taking you further. It's tempting to keep the old self alive because it's familiar. It knows the patterns, the roles, the stories, but that's precisely the problem. Familiarity breeds stagnation. Growth demands discomfort, and discomfort always starts with a funeral. The symbolic burial of the person who is no longer required. This is not a slow evolution. This is a fire. You must be willing to walk through it, knowing that the only way out is through. Epictetus, who was born a slave and later became a respected teacher, never sugarcoated this truth. He believed that the self is forged through conscious effort, not passive experience. He taught that every moment offers a choice, to either be dragged by your old self or to rise and act in accordance with reason, virtue, and courage. You don't get to carry both. You have to choose. And in that choice, something must die. Take Marcus Aurelius, Rome's most powerful man, who wrote to himself in the quiet hours of night, reminding his soul to strip away falsehood and comfort. Even as an emperor, he knew that the real battlefield was internal. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." What he meant was this: power is not inherited, it's earned, by repeatedly shedding what is weak and returning to what is true. To kill the weak version of yourself means to kill the version that avoids conflict, that justifies delay, that seeks validation more than virtue. That version isn't evil, but it is dangerous, because it whispers comfort when you need confrontation. It suggests ease when you require endurance. And it begs for approval when you are meant to embody discipline. This is not about becoming someone else. It's about returning to who you were before the world told you who to be. Stoicism doesn't ask you to fake confidence. It demands that you build character so strong that confidence is the byproduct. The new you isn't louder. He's quieter but grounded. He's not more liked but more respected. He isn't addicted to motivation but married to discipline. So tonight, before you sleep, identify one trait you've been carrying that no longer serves you. Maybe it's the need to please. Maybe it's procrastination. Maybe it's the fear of judgment. Whatever it is, bury it. Then tomorrow, act as if you are already the man who has outgrown it, because that's the secret. Transformation doesn't wait for permission. It moves as if it's already real. This is the art of self-renewal. And it starts when you stop negotiating with the old self and start living as if he no longer exists.
Number 2.
The battlefield of inner dialogue. The loudest war you'll ever fight isn't with the world. It's within your own mind. The Stoics understood this better than anyone. They believed that inner peace wasn't something you stumbled upon by accident. It was a result of daily battle, moment by moment, thought by thought. As Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. And that realization begins with learning how to command the voice inside you. Think about it. How many times have you told yourself you're not ready? That it's too late? That you've failed too many times to begin again? These aren't facts. They're internal scripts you've rehearsed for years. And the more you repeat them, the more you become them. This is the battlefield of inner dialogue. You win or lose here before you ever lift a finger in the real world. Epictetus was very clear on this. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. The how he spoke of wasn't just about behavior. It was about the narrative you construct in the privacy of your mind. If your inner voice constantly says, I can't, I'm not enough, or it's pointless, then you are training your soul to surrender before the battle has even begun. That is not Stoic. That is self-sabotage disguised as realism. To rewrite your inner dialogue is to rewrite your identity. It requires strategy, not self-help. The old version of you reacts automatically like a soldier flinching at every loud noise. But the new version must become the general, deliberate, calm, and brutal when necessary. When a self-defeating thought appears, you don't just listen to it, you interrogate it. You break it down. You say, is this true? Is this useful? Would Epictetus allow this thought to command his life? This is where transformation begins, not in action, but in intention. You cannot build a disciplined life on a chaotic foundation. You must become fluent in the language of your own mind. Speak to yourself not with pity, but with clarity. Speak as if you are leading an army, because you are. The army is your future, and every thought you allow to lead will determine whether that future is one of strength or surrender. Remember, Marcus Aurelius wrote his Meditations not for others, but for himself. It was his journal of internal war, where he rewrote the scripts of fear, ego, and despair every single day. You must do the same. Whether it's through journaling, meditation, or simply catching a negative thought in the moment, you must act. So the challenge is this. Today, anytime you hear that voice telling you to wait, to shrink, to surrender, pause. Then answer it with authority. Don't ask it to leave. To command it. Because if you don't, it will keep rewriting your destiny for you. And that is not what a Stoic allows. This is the battlefield of inner dialogue. Win here, and the rest of the war becomes much easier.
Number 3.
1. Burn the comfort zone. Comfort is the most seductive form of self-betrayal. It whispers to you that you're safe, that you've earned the right to relax, that the hard part is over. But the Stoics knew better. Comfort to them was not a reward. It was a threat. Marcus Aurelius warned, just as nature takes every obstacle, every impediment, and works around it, so too can you turn every discomfort into fuel. To a Stoic, comfort wasn't where you lived. It was where your spirit went to die. Modern culture praises the idea of self-care, of softness, of finding ease. But when ease becomes the default, discipline rots. And when discipline dies, so does progress. Seneca, one of the wealthiest men in Rome, deliberately slept on the floor and wore rough clothing. Why? Not because he enjoyed suffering, but because he feared comfort more than pain. He knew that when hardship eventually came, as it always does, he would meet it as an equal, not a victim. To burn the comfort zone is to declare war on passivity. It means waking up early when you could sleep in, speaking up when you'd rather stay silent, saying no when it's easier to please. It's not about self-punishment. It's about preemptive training. When you do what's hard on purpose, life doesn't break you. It bows to you. Consider the example of Admiral James Stockdale, a modern Stoic and prisoner of war in Vietnam for over 7 years. He credited Epictetus for his survival. While imprisoned and tortured, he said he refused to let comfort, even the fantasy of it, take root in his mind. He trained himself to confront pain with meaning. He didn't wish for escape. He trained for endurance. And because of that, he didn't just survive, he emerged stronger than most could imagine. But this philosophy didn't start in a prison cell or a Roman palace. Even the early Stoics like Cleanthes, who worked hauling water by night to fund his philosophical study, understood the value of fatigue. He did not avoid hardship. He structured his life around it. His spiritual strength came from physical effort, and his mind sharpened in proportion to his voluntary struggle. He did not grow bitter. He grew resilient. The comfort zone isn't just a place. It's a mindset, kumasomam. It tells you that you'll get to your goals when the timing is right. Imam, that's a lie. The timing will never feel perfect. And if you wait for ideal conditions, you'll wait until death. Burning it means committing to discomfort, not as a temporary strategy, but as a way of life. The Stoics didn't run from pain. They absorbed it, understood it, and used it. Pain to them was not the enemy. It was the forge. So here is your call to arms. Every morning, do one thing that makes you uncomfortable on purpose. Cold showers, difficult conversations, delaying gratification. Whatever it is, let it remind you that you are not your comfort. You are your choices. The more discomfort you can carry with dignity, the less control the world has over your fate. To kill the old self is to kill the part of you that clings to ease like a drug. It is to light the match, burn the comfort zone to ash, and rise from the smoke unshaken. This is not suffering. This is strategy. And the more you embrace it, the more untouchable you become.
Number 4.
Detach from the echoes of the past. The past is not just a memory, it's a voice. And that voice, if left unchecked, will sabotage the present and hijack your future. The Stoics knew that clinging to the past was one of the subtlest forms of suffering. Epictetus said, "People are disturbed not by things, but by the views they take of them." The past, then, is not what happened. It's the story we keep replaying. And if you don't rewrite that story, it becomes your prison. How many times have you replayed a moment that humiliated you, betrayed you, or broke your trust? How many mornings have been poisoned by a memory you didn't ask for? That's the echo. And the longer you listen to it, the louder it becomes. But here's the Stoic truth. The past cannot hurt you unless you choose to carry it. And what you carry, you feed. What you feed grows. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself that life is brief, that everything is fleeting, and that what is gone must be released. In one meditation he wrote, "Forget everything else. Keep hold of this alone. Remember your task, to be a good human." He didn't waste breath on what he couldn't change. He anchored himself to what he could still do. Because the past is dead weight, and if you don't cut the rope, it will drag you under. To detach from the past is not to erase it. It's to stop serving it. You are not obligated to keep reliving pain just because it once shaped you. The Stoics believed in identity through virtue, not through memory. You are not your traumas. You are not your regrets. You are your actions today. And the moment you begin to act from that clarity, the past starts to lose its grip. Even in modern times, figures like Viktor Frankl, who survived Auschwitz, embodied this principle. He wrote that between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose. He lost everything, family, status, freedom. But what he refused to lose was his identity as a man who could still choose dignity over despair. If he can do that in a death camp, what excuse do we have in the mundane trials of daily life? So here is your Stoic practice. Every time you find yourself revisiting an old mistake, an old wound, pause. Say aloud, that person no longer exists. I buried them. I decide who lives now. That's not denial. That's a declaration. You are drawing a boundary between the man you were and the man you're becoming. The echoes of the past will return, but they only haunt empty rooms. If you fill your life with purpose, with discipline, and with forward movement, they will fade. Because the past has no voice unless you hand it a microphone. To kill the old self, you must stop resurrecting his ghost. Let the past rest and live like someone who has already buried it. This is detachment, not from life, but from the illusion that yesterday still owns you.
Number 5.
Take ruthless responsibility. The weak version of you has a secret weapon. It blames. It blames parents, partners, the economy, the timing, even fate. And every time it points a finger outward, it avoids looking inward. The Stoics, however, saw this for what it is, a complete surrender of power. Marcus Aurelius said, "You must build your life action by action and be content if each one achieves its goal as far as possible." That philosophy leaves no room for blame, only ownership. Responsibility in the Stoic tradition is not just a moral stance. It is a power strategy. Because when you take full ownership, even of things that weren't your fault, you claim the ability to respond with clarity, strength, and direction. You stop reacting and start rebuilding. You become the architect, not the victim. Seneca, in one of his letters, described life as a ship sailing through storms. He didn't curse the winds, he adjusted his sails. In modern terms, this means refusing to let circumstance define your character. Even when Nero, the most volatile and dangerous emperor of his time, turned against him, Seneca chose how to die with dignity rather than beg for his life. That's ruthless responsibility, to be unshaken, even when the world collapses around you. Now, this doesn't mean everything is your fault, but everything is your problem. And there's a critical difference. Stoicism teaches that your peace depends not on fairness, but on your response. The old self clings to the illusion of justice. The new self commits to action, regardless of what's fair. That's the power of ruthless responsibility. You stop waiting to be rescued. You rescue yourself. Even the early Stoics embodied this truth. Take Cato the Younger, rigid, defiant, incorruptible. When Julius Caesar began to rise in power and threaten the Republic, Cato didn't whine or retreat. He opposed him with unflinching resolve, even when it cost him his comfort, his allies, and eventually his life. Cato didn't win, but he remained free. Because freedom to a Stoic is the refusal to surrender your responsibility to anyone else. In a more recent example, consider Jocko Willink, a modern warrior and advocate of Stoic principles. His mantra is simple: extreme ownership. When his team made mistakes in combat, he didn't look for scapegoats. He took the blame. Not because he wanted guilt, but because he wanted control. When you own everything, you control everything you can. And that control is what gives you peace. So here's your challenge. Tonight, write down 5 things in your life you're dissatisfied with. It could be your fitness, your relationships, your money, your focus, or your discipline. Next to each one, write exactly how you're responsible for it. Not society, not your boss, not your past. You in a matituina. Be honest, be brutal, be surgical. Because this is how you kill the weak self. By refusing to let it keep shifting the blame. You stare your flaws in the face and you say, I created this, which means I can end it. That's not self-hate. That's self-command. When you take ruthless responsibility, you stop being tossed by the winds. You become the captain. The world might still test you, but it will no longer steer you. And that's when everything changes. This is not about guilt. It's about regaining command of your life, action by action. Number 6, discipline over emotion. The old self waits. It waits for motivation, for energy, for the right moment. But the new self, the Stoic self, does not wait. It creates the moment. And that creation begins with one thing: discipline. Not the kind born out of punishment, but the kind born out of purpose. Epictetus put it simply, no great thing is created suddenly. He meant that consistency, not emotion, is the path to transformation. Emotion is a wild horse. It reacts, flinches, rages, retreats. But discipline, true Stoic discipline, is the reins. Without them, you're just being pulled by whatever you feel in the moment. With them, you direct your life toward where it needs to go, regardless of how you feel. That's what separates the weak self from the emerging self. One is ruled by moods, the other by mission. Seneca warned against the flood of passions that overtake us. Anger, fear, laziness, despair. He saw these not as signs of weakness, but as signs of a mind that had not been trained. No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself. In other words, every difficult emotion is a test, and discipline is the answer key. But why is discipline so hard? Because it's not emotional. It's quiet. It doesn't beg for recognition. It doesn't come with applause. It's not dramatic. It's done in the dark, repeated in silence. And that's what makes it sacred. When the world sees your strength, it will look like a miracle. But it was really a routine. Marcus Aurelius, emperor of Rome, was surrounded by political betrayal, endless war, and physical fatigue. Yet he still rose early. Still wrote in his journal, still trained his mind. Why? Because he knew emotion was unreliable, but routine was powerful. That is how empires are ruled, not by inspiration, but by discipline in the dark. Cleanthes, one of the earliest Stoics, worked by night hauling water to fund his study. He came home exhausted, yet still wrote, still practiced, still lived according to reason. He didn't wait for comfort. He didn't pray for easier circumstances. He disciplined himself into greatness through the simplicity of daily effort. In modern times, athletes like Kobe Bryant have echoed this philosophy. Known for his Mamba mentality, Kobe trained at 4 a.m. at every day, year after year, not because he felt like it, but because he decided to. His success wasn't built on passion. It was built on the Stoic ideal to act according to principle, not emotion. So here is your charge. Choose one daily ritual, something that strengthens you. Maybe it's running, reading, writing, meditating. Then do it every day, no matter how you feel, especially when you don't feel like it. Because that is the battlefield. That is the place where the old self dies and the disciplined self rises. To kill the weak self, you don't need more motivation. You need fewer excuses. You need one action, repeated until it becomes who you are. Because the man ruled by emotion is a slave, but the man who commands himself, he is free. Discipline over emotion. That is the Stoic path. Not for a week, not when convenient, but for life. Number 7, empty your cup. One of the greatest obstacles to transformation isn't ignorance, it's certainty. The old self doesn't just resist change, it believes it already knows enough. That is the most dangerous illusion of all. In Stoic thought, wisdom is not accumulation, it is humility. Epictetus said, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." So if you want to evolve, you must first empty your cup. To empty your cup is to let go of being right, of needing to win, of clinging to your opinions like armor. The weak self is addicted to being correct, to proving its value through knowledge or cleverness. But the Stoic self understands this. Real strength is found in the willingness to question everything, including yourself. Socrates, the philosophical father of Stoicism, was famous for claiming he knew nothing. And that wasn't a rhetorical trick. It was the foundation of his clarity. Because a man who believes he knows it all stops listening, stops learning, stops growing. The moment you say, "I already know," you build a wall between yourself and reality. Seneca echoed this when he said, "As long as you live, keep learning how to live." Sucking. That means growth is endless. It requires you to be teachable even in your darkest moments, especially in your darkest moments, because pain will try to teach you things. And if you think you already know the answers, you will miss the lesson. To empty your cup doesn't mean you become passive. It means you become available to truth, to growth, to better ideas. It means that instead of defending your identity, you observe it, you question it, you challenge it, and when it no longer serves you, you let it go. Even the Emperor Marcus Aurelius practiced this daily. Despite ruling the most powerful empire on earth, he constantly reminded himself, if someone can prove me wrong and show me my mistake, I will gladly change. That's not weakness, that's mastery. To remain open, even at the top, is the mark of true strength. Furthermore, consider the example of Confucius, who, although not a Stoic, shared a similar mindset. He once said, "Real knowledge is to know the extent of one's ignorance." Who, despite his legendary wisdom, he never stopped asking questions. That willingness to empty his cup allowed him to lead, to teach, and to evolve across decades. That humility is not unique to one philosophy. It is universal among the wise. In today's world, this philosophy is rare. People double down. They argue endlessly. They mistake volume for insight. But you, if you're on the Stoic path, must practice the opposite. You must say, "What if I'm wrong?" and mean it. That question is not defeat. It is discipline. So here's your action. Every day this week, in conversation, in conflict, in silence, practice the phrase, "What if I'm wrong?" Not as a form of self-doubt, but as an invitation to clarity. You're not abandoning your values. You're refining them. Because the truth is this: you cannot fill a full cup. And the man who believes he has nothing to learn will never become more than he already is. To kill the weak self, you must kill the pride that refuses correction. Empty your cup, again and again. And what remains will be wisdom. This is not submission. This is strategy, and it will set you apart. Number 8, harden through voluntary discomfort. The old self hides from pain. It runs from difficulty. It sees discomfort as something to be avoided at all costs. But the Stoic understands, what you avoid, you empower. What you confront, you command. And if you wish to become unbreakable, you must first be willing to be uncomfortable on purpose. Epictetus taught that true freedom comes not from getting what you want, but from mastering what you can endure. He said, difficulties are things that show a person what they are. The modern world sells you comfort like it's salvation, but comfort is a cage. It dulls your senses, it weakens your will, and it convinces you that anything unpleasant is unnatural. The Stoics flipped that narrative. They believed in practicing poverty, fasting, enduring heat and cold. Not because they enjoyed suffering, but because they refused to be owned by ease. Seneca once advised, "Set aside a certain number of days, during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, 'Is this the condition that I feared?'" That exercise wasn't punishment, it was power. To harden yourself through voluntary discomfort is to train your nervous system to remain calm under pressure. It teaches you to stretch your boundaries. Each time you lean into what is difficult, whether it's cold, hunger, awkwardness, rejection, you become less reactive and more resilient. You stop flinching. You stop needing perfect conditions to perform. You simply act. Consider the Spartan training regimes in ancient Greece. From the age of 7, Spartan boys were thrown into hardship, not to break them, but to make them immune to fear. They didn't wait for life to test them. They tested themselves. And that mindset forged warriors who were mentally tougher than any enemy they faced. You may not be training for battle, but your life will still throw its own wars at you. Better to be ready than to wish you had been. More recently, Stoic-inspired thinkers like Nassim Nicholas Taleb have explored this idea under the term anti-fragile. Some things don't just survive chaos, they gain from it. The same is true for you if you learn to stop avoiding discomfort and instead start inviting it. Even military philosopher Admiral William McRaven, who famously said, "If you want to change the world, make your bed," understood that discipline and hardship are the foundation of transformation. Small acts of discomfort done daily prepare the soul for larger storms. So here's your Stoic challenge. Once a week, deny yourself something pleasurable. It could be skipping a meal, turning off your phone, walking when you could drive. Not to punish yourself, but to prove you are stronger than your cravings, stronger than your convenience. This is how you kill the weak self. By refusing to be owned by luxury, ease, or pleasure. You become the master of your urges, not their servant. To harden yourself is not to become cruel. It's to become capable. And the more discomfort you can carry with grace, the more powerful you become. Not in show, but in soul. This is the Stoic path, and it only begins where comfort ends. Number 9, beware the praise and the blame. The weak self feeds on approval. It hungers for praise and shrinks at criticism. But the Stoic walks alone, guided not by applause, but by principle. Epictetus warned, if you wish to be free, then wish nothing to be under your control that is not your own. And other people's opinions, never under your control, not truly, which is why the strongest among us do not perform for claps. They perform for character. Praise is addictive. It flatters the ego and gives the illusion of progress. But when you depend on it, you become its slave. Your identity starts bending to what others find acceptable. You speak to be liked, not to be true. You act to be admired, not to be just. This is how people become lost in their own masks. Even positive attention can turn poisonous when it becomes your main source of identity. At the same time, fear of blame is equally corrosive. When you live to avoid criticism, you start shrinking. You take fewer risks. You hold your tongue. You become timid, polite, agreeable. And one day you wake up and realize you've been editing yourself for years. Never to please yourself, only to avoid being misunderstood. But Stoicism cuts through that illusion. Marcus Aurelius wrote, ambition means tying your well-being to what other people say or do. Sanity means tying it to your own actions. He didn't need to be praised. He didn't crumble under scrutiny. He grounded his peace in his own integrity, not anyone else's perception. Cato the Younger embodied this more than anyone. He stood alone against Caesar, not because it was popular, not because it would win him praise, but because it was right. And for that, he was attacked, misunderstood, and eventually destroyed. But his character remained untouchable. That's the standard. He didn't sell his soul for comfort. He held the line and paid the price without complaint. Even in more recent history, Nelson Mandela endured decades of imprisonment without yielding to hatred or the need for recognition. He emerged from prison not bitter, not vengeful, but steady. He wasn't moved by applause nor broken by blame. He acted from principle, not popularity. That is what real strength looks like. So here's the shift. You must stop measuring your value by what others give or withhold. You are not what people say about you. You are what you repeatedly do when no one is watching. The Stoic does not broadcast virtue. He practices it in silence. In today's world of social media, this lesson is more urgent than ever. We post for likes. We shape opinions to match trends. We forget that validation is a trap disguised as progress. But if you want freedom, real freedom, you must learn to be okay being unseen. You must be willing to be disliked for the right reasons. So here is your challenge. This week, do one thing worthy without telling anyone. Help someone in secret. Improve something quietly. Be excellent without being seen. Let the act be its own reward. This is how you kill the weak self. By no longer needing permission to live with principle. Praise will fade. Blame will come. But neither will change who you are if you are already rooted. This is the Stoic way. To be unshaken in the storm of opinions and faithful only to your conscience. Number 10, live as if you are dying. If you knew you had one day left to live, what would you change? Who would you become? The truth is, you are dying. Maybe not in the next hour, but certainly in the next season of your life. Time is not promised. And the Stoics didn't avoid this truth. They used it. They called it memento mori. Remember, you must die. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think. This wasn't a morbid fixation. It was a sharpening blade. Death in Stoic philosophy is the ultimate clarity. It cuts through excuses, distractions, and emotional fog. It demands that you answer one question: what are you doing with the time you've been given? The weak self avoids this question. It postpones action. It lives in the illusion of someday. Someday I'll fix my habits. Someday I'll heal. Someday I'll speak the truth. But someday is a fantasy. And fantasies breed regret. The Stoic lives in reality. And reality is urgent. Seneca wrote, "Life is long if you know how to use it. Many nard, duri, but most don't." We burn hours in anxiety, years in denial, decades in delay. We say yes when we should say no. We scroll when we should speak. We stay silent when we should act. Why? Because we think we have more time. But the truth is brutal. You don't. To live as if you are dying is not to panic. It's to focus. It's to strip life down to its essential priorities and act with full presence. This means you stop chasing things that don't matter. You stop pretending pain will go away on its own. You stop letting fear set the schedule of your life. Consider Admiral James Stockdale again. Trapped in a prison camp for 7 years, he didn't know if he'd ever see home again. But he lived each day with a code, not a clock. He made his time count by upholding integrity, supporting others, and remaining mentally free even in physical chains. Death was always nearby, but that only made him sharper. Steve Jobs, reflecting on his own mortality, said, "Remembering that you are going to die is the best way I know to avoid the trap of thinking you have something to lose." Now, that's not just a motivational quote. That's ancient Stoicism repackaged for a modern world. When you remember death, you stop fearing failure. You stop needing permission. You start acting like your life belongs to you. Here's your action. Every morning, remind yourself, today could be my last. Don't say it as a cliche. Say it as a command. Ask yourself, who will I be if this is the last sunrise I see? What action will I take today that honors this temporary, powerful life? Then act. No delay, no drama, no waiting for closure or courage. You move as if your soul is on a timer, because it is. This is how you kill the weak self, by killing the illusion of infinite time. You replace fantasy with focus. You stop performing, you start living. This is the Stoic path. Not someday, not when it's convenient. Now, you've just walked through 10 ruthless steps to kill the weakest version of yourself. But this isn't theory, it's a way of life. Every day you'll be tempted to slip back into comfort, blame, distraction. Revisit these steps. Repeat them until they become instinct. This is not about becoming someone else. It's about remembering who you were before fear got involved. If this resonated with you, like the video, subscribe, and share this with someone ready to change. You don't need more time. You need more truth. The rest begins now.